My stepdaughter absolutely deserves to be in here. 50-year-old stepdaughter demands the family accommodate completely unreasonable plans of hers, then plays the unloved, unwanted victim when healthy boundaries are set. During the 17 years that I've known her, my stepdaughter, 50, who is an alcoholic and drug addict, has repeatedly created situations where she makes outrageous demands based on completely unreasonable expectations. Then when the family sets a healthy boundary by saying no, she has a tantrum and screams things to the effect that she should know better than to expect that she'll ever be treated like she's actually part of the family. Classic addict behavior, always the victim, nothing is ever her responsibility. For example, in 2021 my husband's entire family planned to spend a week at a B&B in Mexico. Minus the adult grandchildren BC, there wasn't enough room. We're the grandparents, and even my children weren't invited BC. I knew they wouldn't come BC of COVID, and I wasn't even sure I was going to go for the same reason. She got absolutely hysterical at being told that her son and his wife shouldn't come, complaining that the other grandchildren were going. The other grandchildren were 5, 8, 10 and 12. WTF did she expect their parents to do with them for a week, leave them at home alone? We did tell her that my children weren't even invited, and no, we didn't tell her why. We just said that not even all the adult children were being invited because we wanted to make a point of how unreasonable she was being about her son and DL. That made zero difference. She still insisted that they deserved to come as well because they are part of the family too. Less than 2 years later, she gave her dad a heads up that she'd been planning to surprise him by showing up for his 70th birthday with her DL, her son and his half-brother, who her son and DL had very recently taken in after both of his parents died within a year and a half of each other. The kid was about 13 and had serious emotional issues, including violent outbursts, and somehow she thought that my husband's birthday party with 14 strangers in our small house would be the proper circumstances in which to introduce this child to the entire family. She had originally told her dad that she wasn't planning to come, and he didn't encourage her to because alcoholic and drug addict, and her resulting unpredictable dramatic behavior. And if that wasn't enough, throw in the fact that I have a crazy immune disease that has a significant impact on my nervous system, and I was still extremely ill/hypersensitive at that point, so I wasn't sure how I was going to manage with all those people in the house to begin with. My 90-year-old mother was also planning to come, so the absolute last thing either of us needed was some kid having a violent episode in my little house. My husband explained to his daughter that we would be happy to have her come down with the 3 of them at a time that wouldn't be so crowded and potentially stressful for the child so he could meet us, but it wouldn't work for his party, and he pointed out that it isn't very considerate to invite 3 other people to a party that would take place in a small house, or anywhere else, without the permission of the host. I should also point out that she, her son and daughter-in-law are all very obese, and remind you that 14 other people were planning to come, and small house. So even after what had happened around the trip to Mexico, she had the nerve to scream at my husband that he was an absolutely disgusting, horrible father and grandfather because he was obviously suggesting they leave this poor traumatized child home alone. WTF? Before, she was yelling at him even after he explained that the other grandchildren were only going to be there because they were too young to stay home alone, and of course that wasn't going to happen. Now she's yelling at him because she genuinely believed that he was suggesting they come but leave the child home alone. So she had a fit in the family text chat, saying that when people show you who they are you should believe them, and she was obviously being shown that she and her family didn't belong in this family, and she left the chat in a huff and hasn't been back in since. She hasn't been removed because she doesn't have an iPhone, so if she wanted to she could come back in at any time. He spoke to her once when she called some months later, but she was drunk and upset about something, and that was the end of that for him. He said that at this point he doesn't care if he ever sees her or talks to her again unless she cleans up and sobers up for good and can be rational. Edited. When she was mid-tantrum about the party, I made one very innocuous comment, at which point she texted me privately and told me that she had written me off the first time we met and had no intention of ever giving me another chance or changing her mind about me. We had his kids over to my house soon after we got engaged, and nobody expected her to come because she had been in a period of self-isolation from the family. We were surprised and happy that she showed up, and as I was wildly codependent at the time and had seriously shitty boundaries, I told her that I was really happy that she came. I knew that she'd been estranged from the family. I know, I would never even think about saying anything like that now. So I finally find out about 15 years later that she had interpreted or heard what I said as ostracized at, meaning of course that the rest of the family had rejected her, making her the poor victim, finishing off her text by saying she wasn't going to discuss it with me. So basically, don't confuse me with the facts. I've got my mind made up, because God forbid there should be any rational, calm, respectful attempt to actually work this out, because then she might turn out to have not been the victim after all. I seriously suspect that she's so determined to believe that the family rejects her that she subconsciously or unconsciously sets up situations like how she handled Mexico and the party because she knows it's going to be no, and then she gets to continue to play out her victim script. Her dad and brother agree with me, because she's actually quite intelligent, so we really think she has to know that her attempts will be met with a no.